Join with the computer. Good afternoon. My name is Erin Colburn. I'm the Pre-Health Advising Coordinator for the College of Health Sciences. Today, I'm joined with Dave Warner from Pacific Northwest University in Yakima Valley, a DO school, and has some relationship with Washington State University Pharmacy. Today, what we're going to do is I'm going to turn the time over to Dave. He has a brief presentation, then he'd like to answer some questions. This is being recorded today, and the purposes of being able to refer back to it, and we will make sure that we can also share the slides if you have any questions. Please put them in the chat and we can watch for that as well. Oh, there's a third person. There's Patricia. All right. All right. So there you go. You want me to drive, Dave?
Yeah, he says he's logging in, right?
Okay. I haven't seen Brea yet, so.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we're ready to go.
We are. Whenever you are ready, let me know and we'll start.
Well, my name is Dave Warner, and I'm with Pacific Northwest University of Health Sciences. We are a DO school. We have a College of Osteopathic Medicine, and that's what you're seeing right there is the main school. We do have 5 different buildings, though. So we share a campus with Washington State University School of Pharmacy, and also School of Nursing. And we now have a PT program, which is coming on board this year. We're recruiting right now for the fall of 2021. No, 20. And then we're in the works of developing an occupational therapy program, which will be the following year. And then we're also working on a dental school. It's a small dental school, about 20 students, but we're looking at about 2025. So we have about 80 acres. As mentioned earlier, we have a lot of parking. The parking is free, which is pretty nice, but it can get a little crowded if you want to close. But I've been with the university for over 16 years. I was actually the 3rd employee there, and I was originally hired to kind of oversee the actual construction of that building. And so I was the facility director there for about 13 years. And when the other recruiter left, I kind of took over that spot, and I actually do student recruiting, and I also recruit alumni. So for preceptors, so they become your teachers. And then we do some alumni events as well. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. So I'll go ahead and I know we kind of just talked briefly. You both have applied to PNWU, which is great. We did open in 2005. We took our first class in 2008. We actually, our first 5 classes, only 75 students. And with that, we, last year in the U.S. News and World Report, we ranked 2nd in the nation of medical schools that place students in rural and underserved areas. So it did help out another 75 grants, but about 73, I think, percent total of our graduates go into some sort of primary care. And then a large percentage go into a rural setting. I was just talking to one of our alumni this morning who's working with a university in Northern California. I looked it up. Population is only 12,000. He did his residency in Palm Springs. He's an ER doc. Now he's working with the university as for their pre-med club, and so I'm helping him out. But so that's kind of our network. I really believe we have a great network with our alums that help our students that are coming up, not only in recruiting students from other universities, but also when students are getting out into residencies. A lot of our students has helped that are already in residencies or in practice helped our students get into residency. And you'll see we have a really pretty good residency match rate, which I think reflects that. We do have a virtual tour. Does anybody did you take the virtual tour? Sorry. Pardon me? Okay, yeah. So we have a full anatomy lab. So we have 4 students per cadaver is our average. We also have 13 exam rooms. So that's where you'll learn your clinical skills, your patient interaction. And then we have 2 simulation labs where we have the robots that are available to you as well. Right now, our interviews are virtual, and I'll kind of give you an idea of how those will work here in a few minutes. But you can, if you want, if you're up in the area, you can get a hold of me. If I'm not in town, I'll definitely get a tour for you. I'm going to go ahead and can I send this presentation so you can maybe send it out?
That would be what I was hoping you would do.
Yeah,
So.
I know you all have you're going to record this so you can go, but if you have the links, it works out good. Plus, you can kind of look if you have any other questions. But this is just our academic partners that I was just kind of talking about too. So we have a department on campus called Interprofessional Education. We have events with the different schools, so they have the ability to work with one another. And before COVID, we got a lot of family events and just barbecues and that kind of stuff. So our mission is very similar to a lot of the schools in the Northwest. We recruit students from the 5 states of Alaska, Washington, Oregon, Montana, and Alaska. I said Alaska first, I'm sorry. So, and you'll see here in a few minutes, we have 16 rotation sites. So just finger 3rd and 4th year in those sites. And you'll see a map of them here in a couple of minutes. But again, we like to recruit doctors or students who become doctors from rural and small areas and place them back. It doesn't always happen. A couple of years ago, we placed a plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills. So that wasn't part of our mission. But we're pretty proud of it. So this is kind of what is a DO. Are you familiar with the difference between DO and allopathic and osteopathic? I think Erin, she has a great story. You know, I heard a person say one time that an MD will say, you know, Sally has cancer, we need to treat the cancer. A DO would say, Sally has cancer, we need to treat Sally. And I think that's the kind of the mentality of the osteopathic way. It's it's a holistic approach. It's look at the body health, you know, I guess be proactive instead of reactive is what most DOs will try to do. I was talking one time and somebody says, why would a person go to DO school if they were an anesthesiologist? And I said, I don't know. So I talked to him because we have quite a few students that go through and become anesthesiologists. And I said, so what do you do? What's that piece? And he said, I watch my patients when they go under. He said, I always make sure that their arms aren't crooked. And during surgeries, if they're long, I'll move them and do some therapy. I thought that was pretty cool. You know, I don't think people think of that, but it's a way that an actually anesthesiologist can use their osteopathy techniques. OMT and OMM is just the terms you'll hear. We have a lab. You're going to get at least 200 hours of OMM lab. Some students, if they want to, you can take up to 600. Depends on whether that's kind of the path you want to take. One of the things that we do offer at the university is we offer 4 fellowships, 2 per year in OMM, OPP. And what that does is you as a student in your second year, you really enjoy either anatomy or OMM. It becomes something of a passion for you. You can apply for a fellowship. You go to your 3rd year rotation and you go through all your core required classes. And not class, I guess you're in your clinics, your hospitals, and doing that. But after your 3rd year, you come back to the university. You will work in that department for 1 year. They will pay you, and you get 1 year off your tuition. So it's not, it's a good deal, really, especially if you're really interested. If you're interested in going this path, or if you're interested in anatomy with surgeries, those kind of things, I think it's a real good, it's an option. It's another option. Okay. So this is kind of what our matriculation is. You see our biggest matriculation schools come out of Washington State. Notice Idaho's at 3%. There's just, I mean, it's the number's low, but so are the students. You know, there's not that many universities in Idaho and Montana. And so we take about 28% of our class comes out of other states other than the 5 states. And so we have students from Maine, Florida. So we have a real diverse population of students. We now have 145 is the maximum that we can take. We average about 135 to 45, depending upon the students take it. And we have students that sometimes get pregnant. They need to take a year off. So we'll work with students that have family type things as well. Financial aid, we have we're fully accredited. That's one thing you might want to look at with some schools. They're not fully accredited. They don't have full financial aid available. And so that's just if you're looking at medical schools, because there's new schools out there. And then also we offer a wide range of different scholarships. Make sure you apply to all of them. We have a large golf tournament every year that raises about $150,000. And it's all for scholarship. Really amazing is most of our gifts that are coming back of students that have that are practicing, they give to a scholarship. That's what they do, which I think is given back to students. Here's the requirements. I don't know if anybody has any questions about prereqs or anything like that. I have a brochure here. I know you've already applied. So if anybody has any prereq questions or anything like that, the back of this brochure has Ashley Botton's picture and contact information. Ashley's our admissions counselor, and she's really good at knowing all the prereq stuff. So.
Sorry, I'm distracted.
Here's your deadlines. Earlier the better. That's what we're talking about with the role admission. So the earlier you get your application in. Our admissions committee always has a tendency to, if you get an interview, pretty good chance you're gonna get in. I mean, you got to really, you know, there's got to be a problem almost if you're not. Generally, that isn't happening. Large percentage of the students that we interview. So when we have those amount of slots, and so the earlier the better. And I think that's pretty true. Most most universities. Here's our, in fact, it just went to print. We just got our final facts as far as percentages of classes of female, male of this newest class. We have in this class, we have a 50-year-old. And I just was talking to a young student that probably will be able to go into probably about 20 years old, maybe 19 or 20. So we have our MCAT average is a 5, about 502, 503, 3.43. Overall in science, we look at your last 60 science credits. It's one of the things that you will, when you have an interview, and we talk about this a little later, but one of the interview questions is your academics. So they're going to go there. They have an open file. So whoever's interviewing you for your academics and your personal statement, they know everything about you. So that's open file. Any of the other MMIs that are just scenario questions, they just know your name. They don't even know where you're from. So, but and generally that person that does those interviews, generally Leanne does a lot of them. She's actually now our assistant provost. I don't know if you knew that. She got a promotion. She's wonderful. And so they're usually some sort of a faculty member or somebody that's really involved in the admissions process. So we are a 4-year program. And then we do have, so you're on campus, your first and second year. Our campus is, as I mentioned, pretty large. Right next door to our campus, we don't have housing. But right next door, there was a fruit orchardist that built originally 1,200 units about 4 years ago. And he's building another 135 that are not completed yet. He just opened up 2 buildings, but there's now studios. Those are going to be studios, and there's 1, 2, 3 bedrooms. I think somebody told me, so a 1 bedroom is $750. So the cost is you're keeping the cost really, really low. A lot of our faculty live there that come in. You know how I don't know, housing around here is tough, but Yakima is really right now hard. That's why they're building those 135. We had students this year that was really struggling getting housing. So, but that'll definitely help. So here is your curriculum for years 1. As you can see, basically just go through what we call SciFom, which is the basics of basic sciences, the foundations of medicine. We are systems based. So if you're learning, say, respiratory in the classroom, you're also going to be learning that in anatomy, and you're also going to be doing that in your own then. So it's all kind of systems based. Our lectures are not mandatory. They're all recorded. So a lot of students, depending upon how you study best, they won't attend. They'll play it back at 1.5 or 2 speed so they can get through it a little easier or see it a couple of times. But I'd say overall, our classes are pretty well attended. We have a 400-seat auditorium that used to be split in half. And years 1 was on one side, and years 2 was on the other. With COVID, we don't do that anymore. It's all open, and so we do the social distancing. And so there's only just your classes in that large. So each lecture is in the big auditorium. So this is your year 2. And then, so we do give you a fair amount of time toward the end for your boards. We rank pretty high in board scores. we do, so there's a physical examination. We rank really high in that. We bring you back your third year to do another board test after your year. It has to be complete by the end of your third year, but all of our physical exams are done very well. We write the curriculum, not we, I don't. But the curriculum is wrote not for boards. So we do surveys of all of our rotation sites, and we want to know what our students are lacking. So how, and one of the things that our students do lack in, they say, is a lot of presentations. As far as hands-on clinical stuff, we're very high. So, but that's how our curriculum is based, is how our rotation sites feel our students are prepared when they get there. Excuse me, this is complex level 1. It's our pass rate. You can see we're right in with the national average. You can get the new numbers. So here's our rotation sites. So they're, yeah, the one on the left. That's a great site. You from it?
No, I am.
Oh, really? I didn't know you were from Blackfoot.
Yeah, my parents still live there.
Really?
Yep.
So
I always make sure they ask.
you know what's interesting is, so the CEO of that hospital, Dan Hospital, is the brother-in-law of one of our 2012 grads. So
Yep.
anyway, as you can see, we have rotation sites, and you get points for being from a certain area. So if you're from Idaho, you have first shot to getting in. But a lot of times students decide that they want to venture off and go to Alaska. Yeah, happens actually a lot. I was looking the other day, we've graduated 10 classes. We're going to have our 10th year class reunion next year. We have 22 practicing physicians in the state of Alaska. It's really, there's Fairbanks. We have one of our graduates. He's actually from Yakima, and he's a doctor on Kodiak Island. Loves it. So, but anyway, there's your rotation site. You'll do third year and fourth year. Predominantly, though, you're going to only spend your third year primarily there doing these cores on the left. And then you only have a few to do on your fourth year. Your fourth year is when you are going out for your rotation auditions. So whatever you're looking for residencies. And so we have departments that will help you with all that process. What are you looking at? You don't have to decide early, but it's nice if you can decide by the end of your third year of really kind of what you're wanting to do. It helps in your search. Here's our residency matches.
Look at that pretty 100.
And actually,
Look how many times it popped up, folks.
last year was another 100. So,
Well, last year, wasn't that the first year that you guys matched at the same time with?
yeah,
Indeed.
with Indeeds.
Look how pretty.
It is. It's pretty. It's definitely a feather in our cap. We've actually had one. We had one student that literally got out. This was a couple years ago. Moved all the way through and said, "I'm not going to practice." And I mean, it just, I've heard of it happening. It just was a little shocked. So, but.
Cool.
Yeah, very, very good. We have a really great support system. One thing that just happened this year is we actually merged enrollment services with student services. So now it's all in one department. Before We were two separate departments, now we're all together. And I think that really helps. Student clubs, I've known of students that wanted a club, and as long as you can get a faculty member to be your advisor, which generally isn't very hard, they'll start a club. So we've had some clubs that we've had to kind of close down just because of no interest at that time. It just depends on who wants to join in. Health and wellness, we give a stipend. We don't have exercise facilities, so we don't have a gym or anything like that. There's a 24-hour fitness, which was an old Gold's Gym about probably 5 blocks away, and so there's a stipend of $20 a month. That if you just turn in your stuff, they'll give you $20 a month to join a club and like that. And there's discounts around town. Yakima. I've lived there for 62 years, so I don't like cold and snow much anymore. We get all 4 seasons. We have a community garden on campus, so there's so many fruits and vegetables in that valley. We're the world's largest grower of hops. So with that said, you probably figure there's quite a few breweries around. They just took an old credit, it wasn't an old credit union. Across the street from the school was a credit union. And they just turned it into a tax. And I gotta tell you, I drove by there the Friday, it was packed. Outside seating, so I'm assuming we have a lot of students up there. Hopefully a lot of food. But there's wine, a lot of wineries around. If you'll never go without fruits and vegetables. And a lot of times they're brought in because everybody, if you can't grow zucchini in Yakima, you can't grow anything. And so we end up with multiple, there's tables that people just bring in apples and pears and zucchini, you name it. A lot of tomatoes. I think we were going to get our first frost last night, so they're going to go off pretty soon. In an hour, you can be at the base of Mount Rainier. In another hour, you can be in the sand dunes of the Tri-Cities. There's a river, probably another 6 blocks from the school, so it's catching a lot of trout. Steelhead runs up there. You're within probably an hour and a half of 3 ski resorts. Like I said, I've lived there for a long time. From the school, you can generally see Mount Rainier and Mount Adams. So this is the Ellensburg Canyon. It's about a 30-mile drive between Yakima and Ellensburg. Beautiful there. Anyway, there's our information. And I'd be glad to answer any kind of questions. You want me to talk about the interview?
Yeah, I think you're right.
So right now, our interviews are all virtual, as I mentioned. There's 2 of them live. One is so generally the 2 open files that I was talking about, which is personal statement and academic, they can sometimes be just one interviewer or 2, but there are 2 15-minute interviews. One is on your personal statement, and one is on your academics. The other one is just a scenario question. Let me ask you, where do you see healthcare in 5 years? There's none of those trick questions like, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? Why? There's none of that. It's all based on, pretty much medical based is what it is. We kind of wanted to see how you think about, what's your passion? Medicine. How do you want to be a doctor? And some of them are just virtually that. Why do you want to be a DO? know what a DO is. We've had students call it OB. That's one way to not get into it. But, and then the other, so there's those are the MMIs, and then there's one that's a group. And the group is just nothing more than another scenario question. Again, they may ask you, where do you see healthcare in 5 years? What do you see rural medicine in 5 years? Where do you see telemedicine? There's those kind of scenario questions, and they're going to give you 25 minutes to discuss with your group that scenario. And the people that are monitoring that, which a lot of times is me, will sit back and just watch. And there's no right or wrong questions. We look for professionalism. We look for courteous, people that are courteous. If you know, it's sometimes pretty tough to talk. People, I mean, here you are, you have 25 minutes and there's no more than 16. 16 is a lot, that doesn't give you very much time. So there's no real deduction if you don't talk, but do talk if you can. Or maybe put into the chat, this kind of thing. So there's a time during that interview process, the very beginning, you'll have an overview. Some of it will be, you know, curriculum, and you'll meet faculty and deans and that, and then you'll have a time to talk to college students.
Okay.
Down on the wall, yeah. Guess I don't lean up against that.
It's a curtain for the window.
You'll have time to talk to just students. There won't be anybody in there other than just students. So you'll get their opinion on student life and how the school really is. If you're interested in talking to a student prior to your interview, reach out to me. I'll hook you up with a current first year, second year that you can ask questions to if you want.
I'm definitely interested. I subscribe to someone who's doing their education at St. Louis Boise from Pacific Northwest. It's just really nice to be able to talk about your school and like see how it's living in the area. It's just really helpful.
And most of the time, I mean, generally I'll have a student.
Do you know Sierra still in the Caldwell
Yeah.
area? Okay. So Sierra Holler is one of our Boise State University graduates who's actually in her third or fourth year. And she selected the Caldwell location for her rotations. So
I think there's 12 students in that. So, you know. And then,
I bet you she can run.
well, Brooke said
Yep. Brooke Sidman.
So Brooke is, she's a Boise State grad. She's been part of our school prior to when she was still here at Boise State. She would volunteer, she'd come to our golf tournament. And she would volunteer. She wanted in our school so bad. And she's now a doc there.
Yep.
In Yakima. So,
Is Remington?
Yeah.
Farley is Remington still?
Yeah.
In school or finished?
finished.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have quite a few applicants who were accepted to PNWU and actually have attended that are somewhere around. And then Dr. Abraham is actually willing to let people work in his office and get some shadow experience. We just didn't get put together with COVID last year, so a formal thing, but he.
You know, Peter,
Okay.
he's a great guy.
He's great.
So
He, you know, a lot of people don't know it, and I'm gonna tell it, because he was almost made the Olympic team. Yeah, in cross-country skiing, he's a super athlete. I don't know if he ever drove a car, ever. In Yakima, you know, he used to have a bike. It's the first person I ever saw that had studs on the bicycle. I met it the last time I was here, we had coffee in the morning. I just like, so the only reason why I have a car is to get to the skier. He's just a wonderful, wonderful individual. Yeah, and he's really on them focused.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for
A lot.
those in the Zoom session, I mentioned Dr. Abraham, we've mentioned Dr. Farley, who's probably in residency, and then some students who are around. So if you're interested in gaining some conversations, we can work with Dave to try and get a hold of those folks to do that.
Dr. Gronowski is a VR doc here now.
Yeah.
And we just got a new doc in, Timothy Zickel.
Okay.
Just is literally, I think he's just now moving. And do you know Dave Miller?
Mhm.
So Dave Miller as well. He's in not Rigby, but Burley.
Yeah.
He's in Burley. So we've got a lot.
Yep.
A lot of Idaho grads here too. If you're looking for a neurosurgeon to talk to, we have one in Idaho Falls.
Mhm.
Or somebody referred to him the other day as brain on legs.
Other questions? So we talked about the interview. What other questions do you all have?
I know you mentioned that we had 2 weeks for review for like the USMLE and the complex, right?
Right,
But for both the USMLE and the complex, or just the complex?
both,
Both.
both, yeah. And if you want to take both, which most students do, depending upon what you're looking for your residency. If you want to go into family med, chances are, and they're talking about combining the tests. One of our faculty writes for both. I don't know how that's all going to work for you guys. You heard on the
No,
test?
right now they accept either for the residency match, so they haven't really made a comment on it with the new combined residency match process. But, you know, I would guess, my thought is that, you know, if you want like a very special specialty, that you should probably take both, just because then that kind of gives them a line of sight on both sides of it. But if you're looking for something more basic, more general, that would be needed for a rural area like general surgery or general family practice, I think you could get away with just taking the complex. And then it saves you cash, right? 'Cause you have to pay for those board
Yeah, and
examinations. And it saves you the time on the studying. Ultimately, what's inherently in the USMLEs is inherently in complex, difference being that the OMM training is in the complex. So, you know, basically trained almost near the same when it comes to the system-based learning that goes into the effect. So, you know, that's the difference. And so you kind of have to ask yourself what's going to help you be more marketable, you know, at that residency level. And I'm sure that everybody at PNWU, your faculty mentors would support you on which direction makes the most sense.
And no, yeah, they'll give
And then
you
do
some
it.
direction. I can tell you that, so we have a student who he's one of my friends, actually. He became a friend. And he's in his 3rd year of residency at Children's Hospital, pediatrics. And he took both. He did phenomenal on complex. And he did horrible on USMLE. Was surprised by the score. But like he says, that's gonna live with me for my whole life, is that score. He tried to kind of shove it, or not even talk about it, but it's with me. And so, and he kind of said, he goes, I just don't think I prepared good enough for it or whatever. And, you know, you can have a good day, a bad day, but I didn't agree with him. If you really feel, you know, if you're wanting to go be an orthopedic surgeon, probably don't want to take gold. But if you're just wanting to be a, you know, some sort of family practitioner, internal medicine, those type of things. I mean, it's whatever you feel, but you'll get some guidance. We have people.
And I also believe step 1 of USMLEs has become a pass fail. There's no longer a score. attributed to it, which will change some of how that you're evaluated as a resident too. So, but yeah, step one is now pass fail versus a score two. And it sets you up for some of your residency options. So.
And are those reviews in class or are they on for the last 2 weeks?
So PNWU.
So they do have some classes designated for them. It's not part of the curriculum, but, you know, Dr. Soros has always been, that's always been his interest. And he is actually the dean of academics. So he's very good at that. He takes pride in our scores.
So the question that was asked was about the support that's offered in terms of in class and outside of class for studying through your complex tests. And the answer was that there is some time built into the schedule.
There's a lot of study materials available. They set up a special room that has all the study materials in it. And, oh, yes.
And then for research wise, I researched a little bit here at Florida State University. And it was really interesting, really fun. But I was looking into PNWU, Pacific Northwest, and it said that you have to get in touch with the faculty or advisor and see what they were kind of working on. And then the library would help too. Is it difficult to get involved in research?
No. So we have an Office of Scholarly Activity. They're in another building across the street that shares with administration. Every Thursday, they set up a table in our foyer. But yeah, if you are interested in research, they generally recommend you don't do it until your second semester, after your second semester, your first year, because you're kind of getting your, you know, they're gonna make sure your grades are good before you move into that. Same thing with being like a student ambassador, doing any kind of extracurricular stuff. We monitor our students for health and not that, because, you know, medical students are achievers. And a lot of times they want to get involved in everything. And medical school is a little different. You know, it's that old garden hose, fire hose thing. So we just monitor everybody to make sure that, and if you need help in any way, reach out anytime. When we have a director of student success, I had a student that I reached out to, just said, this is a month ago. I said, how's it going? He sent me back this text, and I reached out to the student success and said, would you keep an eye out? Ask him how he's doing, because, you know, lost a family person, you know. Those are the kind of things that can, you know, you may be doing really good. So ask for help. And I think every school is very good about that, but I know we are. And people ask me, why should you come to PNWU? My first thing is faculty. I think we have a phenomenal faculty. I mean, a lot of our faculty has been there since day one, and they just care. We don't have an open door policy. Very seldom ever see a door shut. It is the recording. We have offices that you cannot believe. I'm serious. There one when I was a facility person, I had to put 4x4s underneath it because it's full of papers.
Mm-hmm.
And he can come up with them. He's an MD and a PhD, taught at Rush University. Just a great faculty person. A lot of our faculty are retired physicians, so that's really nice. And we've got a full, you know, life for being a doc. Sometimes, so to make sure PhDs, docs, we have MDs and DOs and staff.
How was the curriculum rate for the first couple of years?
Right now, it's It's just that there's no class rankings.
Okay.
So it's just pass fail. Yeah. First couple of exams are tough. So they kind of do a little curve to kind of get everybody up.
And notice that the students are more like collaborative.
Yeah, very collaborative. Yeah. And that's, and you hear that from other students. They'll say, it's not like my undergrad where everybody was, we have a big doc, little doc program. I think most schools do. So we'll match it with a second year. You come in your first year. And that always helps. So you can reach out to them. They do have, the faculty has set up these rooms. So instead of having counselor, you'll have a counselor, but then they also have these different rooms that students can then meet with that counselor. It's as a group too. So you meet as a group and also one-on-one. Yeah. You don't have to, but it's available to you.
I heard that Saturday they have walk with the dog. Have you ever done that?
Walk with the doc.
Yeah, it's like every.
I've never done it,
9
but
a.m.
yeah, so we have, in Yakima, we have the largest free healthcare clinic in the state. And it's called the Union Gospel Mission. And again, fruit people of the community have a lot of migrant workers. And so it's a beautiful clinic. They took an old hotel, they added it, it's got dental, it's got medical, and they serve not just migrant workers, because we have a farm workers clinic as well, but anybody, it's just free health. And then if people are, if they need like an MRI, they have an agreement with the hospital, so they can go, it's free to get that. The reason why I know that is because my brother was in that position. He went there, he ended up in the hospital, and they took care of it. And one of our fact, the medical director there is Dr. Trickett. She's one of our grads. She's the medical director there. But that's where a lot of that work is.
So we've had a couple of questions about student success, about how things are graded, what kind of relationship there is between the physicians and the students. We've also had questions related to research experience that you can gain while you're in medical school. Do we have any questions from the Zoom room? You can take your mute off and ask them, or you can put them in the chat.
So we do have bench research available as well.
Okay.
So,
Bench research? So like moving forward with like clinical experience, like clinical trials and biology research and chemistry research, bench research. So Maggie, you got a question? Oh, I think someone must have left. Yeah, Shannon.
So we've been talking a lot about what it's like, how to get in there at the application stage. What would you recommend students who are freshmen and sophomores be doing right now with admissions later on?
I would say just look at pre-reqs. And the only thing of it is we look at trends. So sometimes taking some of those harder classes, freshmen, they may get I'd suggest maybe getting some of the, maybe weight on organic chemistry until, you kind of understand it a little bit more. But, just if that's the path you want to take, I suggest really, I can send you a worksheet. We have a worksheet under classroom just to kind of start checking things on. Yeah. I'd suggest take a tour, not just our school, but other schools. There's a new school coming in. You may know this, may not. There's a new school coming into Billings, and there's a new school coming into Great Falls. So there's gonna be a lot of options in the next few years. And they're both DO schools.
What are some of the ways that students are involved, like in service in Yakima?
In service.
Like in
So one of the things, when you come in, you'll have a week-long orientation. One of those days is service day.
okay.
And so you'll get to pick whether it's, Habitat for Humanity or, so we also, in fact, we used to do it in the last 2 years, they went away. But we're really heavily involved in Rotary. We have one of the largest Rotary clubs in the world. Our downtown Rotary. So it's huge. And so, but we have, like we have the Big Dock, Little Dock, we are looking at coming back to putting the person with a Rotary community person. In fact, I know a lot of our students that are graduates and alums, and they come back in Yakima, and they may look a couple of faculty or myself up, but they'll always go look for their Rotary family. Because, just a place to go have dinner. It's usually a prominent business person in the community, so, but there's a lot of opportunity. Yeah, in fact, our president, who is, he's actually going through some cancer treatment. Just a wonderful individual. And that's one of the things that he really promotes is service.
Other questions?
What's kind of addressed international medicine? Wondering if there's any sort of opportunities for students.
There is, you gotta, so we have Dr. Ramos Diaz, who's from Cuba, and Dr. Juan is from Colombia. And they do submission trips. And, yeah, some of them. In fact, I was talking to one of our students who, so so we have a master's program, and she's originally from Florida. She went to college in South Carolina, played soccer, got married, and moved clear out to Washington State with her husband, who was in the Navy. They ended up getting that course, and she didn't. So she comes back to Yakima, and she takes her master's program. And then she gets a government school. And she was going to do OB. That was her path. About a month before she had done all of her rotations, she was working with some people at the hospital with some geriatrics and decided she wanted to go to family medicine. I just threw everything on with her. So she ended up not matching. She ended up having to go through what they call the scramble. And she ended up in Wayland, West Virginia for 3 years in a rotation. I know it was a long story, I'm sorry. She's now a doctor in Hilo, Hawaii. And I just talked to her a couple days ago, and she's heading to Peru. So, there's, I guess, young people today amaze me how versatile you can be. I've lived in the same house for 37 years. I can't even move. My wife and I were talking the other day, we need to downsize. I don't know. I don't think I can do it.
I know, it's really